Thank you so much for joining us, Anna. I'm really excited about this session. I feel like just I love colors and like combining different colors, and that's probably the thing that got me first interested in knitting. And I feel like you, more than most other designers working at the moment, just really have this amazing way of like combining different colors. So I can tell that you probably approached knitting in the same kind of from that the colors first, colors and shapes. So
Mhm.
I'm really looking forward to it. And if you could let us know, like when did you first kind of fall in love with Intarsia? Where did it all start for you?
Mm, it started basically when I was studying, and I developed paper collage cutting for my work, um, um, like sketching and brainstorming using paper collages. And then I had these abstract images that I wanted to turn into knitted textiles. And then naturally, Intarsia was like the best solution or best way to do it, as it's the best technique to transform it. And I think it just really fits my way of working, and it's nice to express my illustrations through Intarsia. So that's the first time I picked it up, and then I experimented a lot for my master's graduation project with it.
Okay, amazing. So did you make like kind of like collages with paper and things first
Yeah,
then?
yeah, and I'll have a um I can show it in a minute, like in the presentation. I've got a some collages to share. Yep,
Perfect.
abstract paper
Wonderful.
collages.
Looking forward to it. And then you also have a book as well. So we will pop a link in the chat to your book. There it is. Gorgeous. Well, yeah, I for one am really looking forward, and I think most folks have joined now. It looks like we've got most people. So yeah. Oh, we've got one question in the chat actually first before we
Yeah.
kick off, if that's all right, which is could you explain the difference between intarsia, mosaic knitting, and fair isle? Um,
Yeah, I'll basically explain standard color work and Intarsia, and then I can just drop a line about mosaic knitting. It will be in the presentation as well.
Amazing. Well, let's get into it then.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot for inviting me, and hello everyone. Happy that you're here and that you're curious about Intarsia as well. So I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, just yeah, now you see it. I could just quit it.
Perfect.
Can you see it, everything?
Yeah, that's grand. Looks lovely.
Okay, I just said a bit about me, but I can add a bit as well. Here you can see the collages that I was talking about. Um, I am a textile and knitwear designer based in Hamburg, and it's also Hamburg where I studied textile design, where I got a look into all different kind of textile designs, of all different fields of textile design. We did a lot of weaving and screen printing and embroidery and a bit of dyeing, but I pretty early focused on the field of knitting. Bought my first knitting machine, like domestic knitting machine, and then got deep into hand knitting, machine knitting. You can see a bit of the tools on my machine back there. Um, and also got deep into color and all sorts of material experiments. And it was during my master's degree, as I just said, where like discovered collage cutting works really well for me because I like to sketch and brainstorm using them because they're very easy and intuitive to work with and very easy to create something abstractly. Because if I want to turn an image into knitting, it's hard to do it by a picture. It's easier to do it by a really abstract image first and then turn it into stitches because a photo would be too detailed. And I cut a lot of my collages. I cut on the spot, like outdoors. So I search for a scenery or some motifs or special colorways that I like, and then I start cutting and try to transform this scenery into an illustration. And then I turn this abstract illustration and transform it into knitted textiles by filling each shape with various materials. And
Amazing.
it's a set. The Intarsia then naturally was the perfect solution. And about 3 years ago, Quadrille Publishing reached out to me asking if I want to do a book about Intarsia. And of course, I was like thrilled and excited to do it. And then I put all the, like, lots of tips and tricks inside that I learned so far using Intarsia. And I have a few projects inside, which I'm going to share a bit later on, and also show some tricks. Yes, but first, that was the question that got asked. First I wanted to share, like, to get you all on the same level, I wanted to share the difference between Intarsia and stranded colorwork. Both are like techniques where you use several colors in one project. But to understand how Intarsia works and how you actually knit it, it's good to have a look at the differences first. So we've got a swatch in stranded colorwork, and we mostly use 2 or maximum 3 colors for stranded colorworks. And we've got one ball for each color, and we use them simultaneously in one row. So that's the basic. And then we carry each yarn from one shape to the other where we next need it, and therefore create those floats at the wrong side that you can see.
Sophia is saying that your floats are incredibly neat and
Yeah.
tidy, and I have to say, I'm thinking the same thing. They're
Yeah,
amazing.
I need to add it's made on the knitting machine.
Okay.
That's what.
You're making me feel more calm now.
Yes, people always like feel intimidated by that, but it's made on the machine. That's why it's so like neat, and the machine also can really deal with long floats, making it look neat as well. But usually, if you design a stranded color motif, you pay attention so that the floats won't get too long. So usually, motifs are like rather small and repeated. So that's basically what the motifs in stranded colorwork are about. And then on the other hand, we've got an Intarsia swatch on the made on the knitting machine as well. And the biggest difference is that we need a ball of color for each color field. So we knit with using only one ball at the same time, but we knit across to the color change, and then we drop the old color and pick up the new color. And that's where we need to like twist the yarns around each other so that the color fields are connected. And that also means like if you have in the section below with the small dots, you've got like 4 balls for the background color because we don't carry them on the wrong side. We only twist them, as you can see, this creating this kind of color seam at the wrong side. And that means that there are several balls hanging down your knitting, and that sometimes can feel like a bit intimidating for people. I think that's the reason why some people are intimidated by Intarsia, but that has a big advantage because we don't have these floats. We don't need to pay attention to the length of the floats, so we have lots of creative freedom. We can basically knit up every motif that we can come up with, and we're also very freely in positioning the motif. You can like do a classic front motif, but you can also do like cover an entire garment with Intarsia or highlight just a specific tiny shape somewhere. So lots of so it's a very creative technique, and that's what I like about it.
It's kind of like drawing on the fabric,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah, it's a bit
Yeah.
like painting. That's right. Um, and then I'm going to say something about the intarsia join, or maybe some people also say intarsia twist, because we don't want like separate fields of colors. We need to intertwine them in between, and that's done by the intarsia join. and it's it's always done on the wrong side of your work. So no matter on which row you're knitting, first you bring your yarns to the wrong side of your work, um, and then you take the old color, the color that you've just knitted with, and you drop it, laying it on top of the new color, the one that you want to knit next. So you pick it up, and then you see it in on step 3. You pick it up, and then you kind of interlocked the old color in the new one. And that's basically it. It's like very, if you get used to it, it's a very simple twist, and then it's done. And
So, so the old color is just always going on top of the new color. That makes
yeah,
it sound quite
yeah.
easy, straightforward, actually.
Totally.
Yeah.
No matter what row you're knitting, or wrong side or right side row, it always gets on top so that the new one comes from underneath. And
Mm,
then if you knit a right side row, that happens behind your knitting on the wrong side. And if you knit a wrong side row, it's happening in front. That's why it looks a bit different. It's very easy twist that you get used to when you work.
mm,
And then what I like to do to get neat stitches is when I knit the first stitch in the new color, I pull both yarns taut, like only slightly, because if you when you do the twisting, the stitches tend to get larger, and if you knit across larger stitches, then these stitches will get larger as well. So we want to like pull them a bit to make all stitches the same size, so that the twist or the color neat becomes color seam becomes neater. And then if you join a new color, like if you begin a new color in the first row of the intarsia, there's no twisting happening. We only just knit to the part where the new color comes, drop the old color, and continue knitting with the new color. Because the colors
mm.
are not there, they will be newly introduced, so no twisting is happening there. And one last thing, where we add a new color, there will always be a little hole where the yarn end is, and some people get confused by that. But once you sewn in the end, that will disappear. So no
Okay.
worries if little holes appear at the beginning of a new shape.
Okay.
Yes, so that's basically the technical part. Now it's about getting creative. Because what I really like is to combine Intarsia with other knitting techniques, because to create like variations of the Intarsia technique or modifications, because then diff like unusual, kind of unusual, or maybe a bit, yeah, unusual color combinations or material combinations occur where they usually maybe not, where you've seen them not that much. And the first thing, that's probably my favorite variation, is to knit garter stitch instead of stockinette stitch. Because, like you see here in the Before Bloom bandana from my book, um, because you most of the time you knit intarsia flat, so it's really relaxing and easy to do knit stitches only. And garter stitch adds like a beautiful texture to your colorful shapes, and
Mm,
also because it's garter stitch ridges, the motifs, like the edges of each shape, get really neat. That's what I like most about it. Because if you knit stockinette stitch intarsia, you've got these V's at the edges because of this stitch at the edges of each shape. And in garter stitch, it's like a really neat, um, proper shape.
mm.
And here you can see the projects knitted from Knit by Numbers, which is my favorite yarn to work with because of the wide range of colors to choose from. And then um, got a matching hatband for the bandana. It's called the In Full Bloom hatband. And
Lovely.
here we got the chemic shawl I made for the Annual 3, which is inspired by the fields around the mill,
Yeah,
also
it is
knitted in Knit by
beautiful.
Numbers and beautifully modeled.
We do our best.
Yes. And what I like to do is to combine garter stitch entirely with an I-cord edge stitch, which you make as you knit, because it continues the colors on the edge stitch beautifully, and it creates a nice contrast because this is plain rope at the edge compared to the ridges.
It
And
is beautiful, that sample. It's so neat and tidy, your Intarsia. It's really, yeah, gorgeous.
and as you might have seen, I'm going to skip, if I can do, I'm going to skip back to the little sketch here. Intarsia has quite a visible wrong side. It differs from the right side because there's this color seam. And also, if the motif changes shape, you see it below on the last shape. When the motif changes shape, then there are these tiny floats that appear because a yarn is needed somewhere else when the motif changes. So I thought it might be interesting for you to see the wrong side of the samples that I showed you, because you can do some tricks to hide these floats that appear. Because at some stage, I thought I really want to do scarves as well. I don't want to do like garments only where you've got an inside and it doesn't matter right when it's different. I want to do scarves in Intarsia as well. So I tried to find some tricks to hide these floats. So I'm going to show you. I hope you can see the video. So this is the right side, and then you see the wrong side, and these floats are no longer visible. So you can do some tricks to make it almost as neat as the right side. Instead, for the headband, I didn't do it because it's not necessary. You wear it on your hat and you can't see it. And there you can see those floats appear a bit, and you can also see my yarn ends, which I'm going to say more about it later. So this is what the wrong side looks like. And then, let me just quickly there's another variation I like to call Marled Intarsia, which is the combination of marling yarns and in the Intarsia technique, and it's basically holding yarns together partly. Because as you can see in the Selvatica stole, here the shawl, there's one yarn, base yarn, running through the entire scarf. It's the black yarn here. And to create these colorful shapes, those little shapes, you take a very thin lace weight or mohair or alpaca blend, and you hold them together for only that part. So basically the whole scarf is knitted in one thread, and then all these colorful shapes are two threads. And
Lovely.
as you hold them together, you don't need to twist them around each other. And this creates these more subtle not that vibrant like regular Intarsia compared to regular Intarsia.
So
And
is that, sorry, is that all mohair lace then?
now the base yarn is, in this case, it's a very special one. It's a mix of wool and paper. It's a
Okay.
fingering weight yarn. And those colorful shapes are all mohair.
Okay, so that's why you don't have to twist it so much because the mohair's just really grippy anyway.
Yeah, it's grippy and it's also very thin. So
Mm,
it's the main fabric is a bit like airy, and then
mm,
you add the mohair, and then you've got your correct gauge, um, and then you've got to play with transparency as well. And it's also suitable for as an Intarsia introduction or for beginners because you've got less balls. As
yeah,
if you would do it with regular Intarsia, you would have needed like a separate ball of the black color between each shape.
yeah.
And this way it runs through, so you only got one skein, it runs through, and less balls are included.
Okay, so if people are trying Intarsia for the first time, do you think the mild Intarsia might be a nice way to like give it a bit of a go?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
And also, like, you can do it the other way around. If you're holding two threads together for the whole scarf, in this scarf, it's a light decay yarn. and an alpaca yarn. You hold them together, marling the background basically. And to create these shapes, you drop the alpaca yarn and knit with only the base yarn, the DK weight yarn only, to create all those graphical shapes.
It's
And here I've
very
got,
beautiful.
thank you. Here I've got like a making of video of the scarf, which is a collaboration with an Initiative Handarbeit here in Germany, where I tried out different yarn combinations. And then it basically has 3 base yarns and 1 contrast color.
Mm.
And then this is a narrow scarf, which recently got published in Linus' 52 Weeks of Scrap Yarn book, which combines both techniques of these marled intarsia. So you basically got 3 chart blocks, which are empty, and then you use your mohair and alpaca blend or leftovers, and you basically fill these chart blocks. It's a bit like you said, Sonia, like painting.
Yeah.
Paint each other. You can either paint the background or paint colorful circles, and you can play around using both techniques. And very good thing is, because you don't need to twist the yarns around each other, it's basically reversible. So it looks the same from the right side and the wrong side. You would like when the motif changes, you would see tiny floats with the mohair yarn. So you need to do these tricks as well to make it fully reversible. But it's a huge difference compared to regular intarsia. So here you can see the front and the back. And here's like in the snip scarf, you can see one color seam when the base yarn changes, but
Mm.
all the other colors blend into each other. And in a
Ye-
really like subtle, mild way, which I really like.
That's so fun. We will pop some links in the chat as well for each of those patterns you've just showed if anyone. I'm sure there'll be other people watching this feeling as inspired as I am.
And then there's the third variation of Marled Intarsia, which you can see in Looking for Treasures Tea, where you've got where your main fabric is knitted using 1 thread of mohair, creating a very airy fabric. And then to create these front motifs, I take a fingering weight yarn, it's a silk here, and hold them together again. And this plays with transparency and with monochromatic shades. So it's a very, very creative variation where you can play with material contrast a lot and use up all your leftovers, which is also a benefit. And then we've got the Along the Coast West, which is the first project I created for my book. And it's the one I'm wearing. I'm wearing the summer version. And it combines 2-color brioche and the Intarsia technique, which is quite an advanced combination. So we first start with a 2-color brioche, which creates these 2-toned linear vertical stripes. And then I take one of these colors, and in this case, it's the brioche knit color, looking at the front, and I combine it with the Intarsia technique. So only one of these colors is still in Intarsia, the other one runs through. It's the dark pink in this sample. And it's nice to kind of interrupt this linear repeated pattern and add organic shapes to it. So to kind of break it up. And in this case, as it is brioche, we are going to look at the wrong side again because it's interesting. You of course you also see the color seam where we twist the yarns around each other, but you also see those floats when the motif changes because in this
Ah,
in brioche it's way more visible because brioche comes in pairs now. It's 1 knit stitch and 1 purl stitch, so these floats get really long. And it doesn't
yeah.
matter if you do a vest or a top or something where you can't see the inside. But I really wanted to make a scarf as well in brioche intarsia. So I tweaked a bit and tried to find a way to hide these floats inside the brioche stitch. As you can see in the sample on the right, above it's regular brioche intarsia, and then on the circle below you can see how you can hide these floats inside the brioche stitch to make it more reversible, because it's a pity. Brioche is such a beautiful reversible technique, and
Yeah.
Intarsia kind of sets it down. So this is the brioche intarsia bandana, where I used some apple door for the background, like for this pink version. As you can see, it has a motif on the front, and then the back side is almost plain. The motif's just peeking through. Yeah, and then the last variation I want to show you is the combination of slip stitch and intarsia. And it works similar to the brioche intarsia combination, because here I was working with a two-color slip stitch pattern, creating these vertical lines again, but this time adding more texture, because one color is doing a stockinette stitch line and the other color is doing a garter stitch line. And then I took the green color, the garter stitch color, and added 4 simple shapes to it to kind of, again, interrupt it, make it look more interesting, and also for me personally, make it more interesting to knit, because then something more is happening.
Lovely. We've got a question about the slip stitch technique.
Yeah.
Leo's saying, is that the same slip stitch you'd use on a heel flap? So you're like knitting one row straight, and then on the next row you're slipping every other stitch. Is that the technique?
I think almost. In this case, I knit 2 rows using one color, and I
Hmm.
slip the every other stitch, do 2 rows, and then I take the other color and again slip every other stitch.
Okay.
But I'm doing 2 rows. Yeah, and it's flat. That's
Yeah,
basically because of it.
it's very beautiful. And it's a perfect fabric for a bag as well, because it makes it really
Yes,
nice and dense, I'd
yes,
imagine.
totally. Yeah, it's really like dense, and it's also quite stiff, which I like. And the next one as well, it's the one I'm working on at the moment, using some leftovers. It will be a bag as well, and it's you can see it again. It's 2 stitches here. One color runs through the whole bag, and the other color is doing some graphical intarsia motifs.
It's such a beautiful color combination, this, all those greens and browns with the turquoise.
Yeah, the turquoise actually is a color that works really well with almost everything.
Yeah.
Okay, let's
Oh,
continue.
sorry, we've got another question
Yeah,
quickly. Um, with the Looking for Treasures tee,
yeah,
someone says they don't want to use mohair, but they've got laceway alpaca.
yeah,
And would that work?
yeah, that works well. I've knitted a sample as well in the Chaos brushed alpaca, which is a lace weight alpaca yarn, and that works as well. It feels a bit differently because mohair I feel has a bit more stiffness for the whole garment, but the effect works the same.
Lovely. Thank you. Yeah, alpaca's very drapey, isn't it?
Yes,
It's very flowing.
more softly. Yeah, yeah, right. And then, as I said, Intarsia is not very difficult to do. It's more about being patient and like having all those yarns hanging down, not getting nervous is more the thing. But there are a few techniques that can help for the yarn management. And first of all, the simple one. Oh yeah, yeah, and it depends a bit on which type you are. I either recommend you embrace the chaos and knit a bit, not looking at the yarn tangling, and then
Hmm.
take a minute to untangle everything. Or if you know it will make you nervous, or if you do the Marled intarsia with mohair, because mohair makes it um even worse. Then I'd say untangle everything every second row or even after every shape. Just depends on how you can send it.
Okay.
But there are a few tools that can help it. And the first technique that is easy to do is I call it turning because it's basically if you've got a rather simple motif and also if you it works better if you've got straight needles without a cable because in the cable yarns can get tangled as well. And you just place the yarns in front of you on the table in the order of your knitting. And after a right side row, you turn your needle in one direction. And after a wrong side row, you turn it in the other direction, no matter in which. Just do it all the time the same. And then the yarn should be untangled again. And that
Okay.
it works quite well up to a certain amount of colors.
Yeah. So always flip it back and forth rather than like flipping it over again.
In the, yeah, because we tend to do it in the same direction over and over again. But if you do it back and forth, it should, in the end, technically be untangled again.
That makes sense.
And then,
I've just got one more question as
yeah,
well, if that's all right, Anna. Thank you.
yeah,
Which is Intarsia in the round. Is
yeah.
this something you've ever done? How does that work?
Well, I do get that ask very often,
Yeah.
just because people laughed in it in round. And it's possible, but I like to call it seamless intarsia because it's technically not in the round. It will still be back and forth. And I always show my hat as an example. If you like knit, come across here and then you drop your mint yarn and you
Or
knit.
we can't, if you unshare your screen for a
Yeah,
moment, then we'll be
yeah,
able to see your hat.
sure.
Thank you.
Can you see it now?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
So let's say, or we cannot say it with that shape. Let's say we knit this circle and drop the pink yarn here. And then we pick up our mint yarn and knit around the hat. And then we come again to the circle. And we're here now, but our pink yarn is here. So knitting in round doesn't work because the yarns will always be on the wrong side of the color field. So what we do is we still knit back and forth, and there are some techniques how you can avoid having a seam. That's why I prefer to call it seamless intarsia. And then there are
Okay.
different techniques, and one technique I figured out works for me very well is a technique where you first, before you begin, wrap the yarns around each other, and they stay twisted all the way you work your row, and end up using end up in a regular intarsia join. It's really hard to explain, but if you do it, it works out really well. Like this
Okay.
head is knitted in seamless intarsia because it's a double layered reversible head. Like you can turn it around and then there's a different motif. And it's quite a thick wool. And if you would do it in a flat with a seam, the seam would be way too bulky on both layers. So,
Yeah.
so I always say there is a reason why most of the projects are knitted flat, because if you do a really complex top like that one with lots of yarns on the front and the back, and you knit them like in round, knitting both the front and the back at the same time, you've got the double amount of balls hanging down your knit as when you would do it flat and then sew it. So sometimes it just makes more sense to do it flat. But it's possible. You just need to like think before or weigh up which fits more to your projects.
Okay. So what you're saying, just to clarify, is you
Yeah.
can end up with something that has no seam, but you'll still have right sides and wrong sides. So
Yes.
you'll still be doing some purling if it's
Oh,
stockinette.
nice. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, for sure. You could also like do a garter stitch, seamless, then you would do knitting only. But if
Yeah.
you do, I like to like do it on ribs as well here. These ribs are knitted in the round because I don't like seams on the underarm. So that
Mm.
would be a usual rib per one knit one, but still doing it back and forth. Like
Yeah.
knitting actual rows, then turning and knitting back like that.
Okay.
So
Amazing.
yeah. Yeah, just need to weigh up what fits the project better.
Yeah. And if you've mastered Intarsia, then one little seam is hopefully not too scary either.
Yes, yes. And sometimes it can even provide stability. If you do a bag, for example, then a seam is helpful.
Mm.
And also, if you've got lots of ends to weave in, a seam doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
that.
then you can weave all the ends into it. I like
Yes,
seaming. I always think
yes.
seaming is good. Definitely. Anyway, back to the presentation. Sorry.
Yes. Yeah, no worries.
Thank you.
Yeah, back to the yarn management. There are some other techniques that work quite well. For example, if you do the looking for treasures tea, where we only got those little uh, dots, little circles, very small motifs. Then you can, it's the technique 2 in the picture. Then you can cut your yarn in the desired length. And sometimes I even have those lengths included in my patterns. So you cut off, let's say, 3 meters, and then you knit it loosely hanging down, just hanging down as a loose end. And if it gets tangled, you can just pull it out the tangle. So for small circles or small motifs, that works really well. And then usually I prefer to work on the couch because then all my yarns can lay around me and they don't roll down. But if you want to work on the table, you could also, it's point 3, use small vessels or glasses or like gem glasses. Put your skeins in and then you can more easily detangle them or they don't roll off the table. And then there's these things called bobbins, which are there are like different kinds of bobbins out there. Some of them are squared, as you can see in point 5. Some of them are rounded, and they all work the same. You can like wind your yarn on top of it, and then you can lock your yarn into it. That's important because then it doesn't unravel. Because the more it unravels, the more or unwinds, the more yarn is there to get tangled. So you basically these round ones on point 4, you just open them and then wind your yarn on top of it, and then you click them to fixate your yarn. And then you that also makes your projects more like transportable because Intarsia is not the best thing to do when traveling because you've got all the yarns and when you've got them in one bag, they will tangle a lot. But if you've got them hanging down with these bobbins, it's easier to do it when you go. The only thing you need to pay attention to is that when you use bobbins, they need to be like very short distance from your needle because if they are too long hanging down, then they might get tangled as well.
Mm.
And then another bobbin is number 6. It's a butterfly bobbin, which I like to work with because sometimes having a complex motif and lots of bobbins hanging down can add weight to your knitting. And then I like to do these butterfly bobbins, which you can wind and then the yarn is fixed as well and you can pull it out. And I thought I'd just show you how to do it. It's very easy to do. Can you all see the video? I hope you can see.
Yeah, I can.
Perfect. So first you lock your yarn end into your thumb, then you wrap it around your fingers, and you need to pay attention that they don't overlap. They should like lay, all yarns should lay next to each other. And you can pull them down slightly, but they're still lying all next to each other because otherwise they won't unwind easily. And you do that until your fingers are full or your skein is completed. Wind it around your fingers and then you pull it up a bit. Your yarn that is still at your thumb. You pull it up a bit so that you can wind the last bit of the yarn around your bobbin, basically. Wind it around quite tight because you don't want to you want to use it for a while. And you can also like pull it off your finger and then wind it by hand. It's easier. pull it through, and then the yarn end that has been fixed at your thumb, you can pull that one out. And it still stays like
That's
that, but you can pull it out.
amazing. So clever.
Yeah, it's very, very easy to use, and it's also very light hanging down your knitting.
Yeah.
And it,
And I guess that's the thing with Intarsia is each motif, unless it's huge, you actually only need that little bit of yarn, don't you?
yes, yeah, totally. Yeah, for most of the motifs, you only use a little bit.
Amazing.
Mm, and then, yes, and I've got a tip for before you start knitting your entire project, you first take a look at the chart to determine how many bobbins of each yarn do I need. Because you probably will need to wind a few balls before you start, because mostly for most motifs there you use several. And if you're knitting a project where you need two balls of one color, and I know it's tempting, but I don't recommend to use the inside and the outside of one skein because that will make the tangle even worse. So you need to like wind two beforehand. Or if you're knitting with two strands or even more strands at a time, I'd recommend to wind them beforehand as well. Because if you then have got several colors with multiple strands, that would be like a mess. So it's about
Yeah.
preparing everything beforehand. And then there are some helpful tools. And most of the time I use regular knitting tools, nothing fancy, but there are these three tools that I use the most. And the first one is a browser application called Stitch Fiddle, which turns your illustration into a knit chart within seconds, basically. So you type in your gauge, and then you upload your photo, and then it creates a knit chart, which is the starting point of most of my patterns. And it also has a feature that you can track your knit chart online. So you can follow the chart online if you want to. If you want to like rather follow it manually, I like to use those chart readers, which are basically magnetic boards where you pin your printed chart onto, and then you've got a magnetic ruler as well, where you can row by row follow your chart and your knit pattern. And then what I use a lot are these pin boards, or how do you say that? Uh, Blocking mats.
Yeah.
Where you
Yeah.
yeah you block, because I basically block everything, every experiment or every swatch, pin it on the board, and then you can figure out the gauge or anything else you need. And then lastly, I've got some finishing tips, because when you do complex patterns, or even when you do simple intarsia patterns, there are lots of ends to weave in. And I like to weave in my ends using the duplicate stitch method, because it creates a very neat right side and wrong side. And basically, first thing, well, in general, you weave in the ends matching your colors, which is pretty obvious. So you want to like weave in the brown yarn end in the brown shape. But I can just, let me just press pause for a second. If you now would weave in the brown yarn end, like in the right direction, you would create a little hole here, which you can see.
Mm.
Therefore, we need to first make a backward stitch into the color seam. I'm going to show it to you to close that hole. You don't need to do that every time. It depends on the shape, whether you need to do that. You basically, let me show it again. It's the color seam where the color
Yeah.
changes, and you just do a backward stitch, and now you can weave in the end using the duplicate stitch. And it's basically tracing a stitch, the way of a stitch. And in garter stitch, it's a bit more difficult to find the right row to weave in, because it's tempting to use the ridge. It's easier, but that will make your knit less stretchy. So what I do is I stretch my knit to see where I actually need to go to. So it's not the ridge, I need to go one row below. And then I trace the way of the yarn and follow each stitch for, yeah, it depends on the yarn. Sometimes I do, yeah, it depends. If it's a thicker or more grippy yarn, I might not only use like 4 to 6 stitches. If it's a very delicate yarn, I do maybe 7 stitches. It totally depends on what yarn you've got and how thick it is.
Yeah.
And then I cut my yarn, leaving a tail of about 2 centimeters. And then I wash it and block it. And if it's a vest or something with a clear inside, then I leave those 2 centimeter yarn ends because it prevents the yarn to pop on the right side of a garment. And if it's a scarf or something else, I then cut it, but only after washing and blocking it. So it's at the right place and it probably won't pop up to the right side.
Okay.
And then last thing, if you have a delicate fabric or a delicate yarn, like this one is knitted using 2 threads of silk, then I even like separate the yarn and weave in both yarn ends separately because otherwise it would be too bulky because this fabric is quite airy and I've got 2 threads for every yarn end. So I split them and then weave in both yarn ends separately to make it less bulky. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that's all. Are there any more questions?
Amazing. Thank you so much. I'm sure that was absolutely fascinating. I'm sure people will absolutely have loved it. We've got a couple more questions, which is how do you estimate how much yarn to put in each bobbin?
That depends. Sometimes I do it just intuitively, and sometimes if you want to do it totally correctly, you can calculate it beforehand. Do a little swatch and knit a bit, and then unravel that part. So you get meterage of, let's say, 10 stitches are 2 meters, and then you can calculate how much yarn one stitch needs, and then you've got a shape of, let's say, 50 stitches, and then you know you need 10 meters.
Okay. Yeah.
But sometimes I do provide that in my patterns, and I
Okay.
say you need 5 meters or you need 1.5 meters. But
Amazing.
basically, if I got an organic pattern as this one, I would just do it like I feel.
I guess as well with so many ends, like if your bobbin doesn't quite have enough, you can just put a bit more on.
Yes,
And
doesn't
yeah.
matter.
Oh, there's so much love coming in for your present. I mean, I'm sure everybody here will just be like, I feel like I need to go home and get all of my little odds and ends of balls out and
Yeah, it's a
do
perfect
something with them.
technique for using up leftovers.
Definitely. So we've got Susan saying, does it work well with heavier yarn like Aran and Chunky as well?
Yes, it does. It does. I've even got like I think I knitted with bulky yarn and garter stitch. I knitted a few mittens. Also using stockinette stitch works quite well with very thick yarn. So yes, it does. Probably the slip stitch will get too heavy, but it depends on the stitch you're using. But it definitely works the same. You just twist the yarns around each other.
Yeah, amazing. It's very inspirational. There's also lots of people saying that they want to go and grab a copy of your book, which I know we've got one at the mill and it is absolutely beautiful. So we'll put another link in the chat as well to where folks can get your book. Let's see if there are any. I think it's just a lot of love. I don't think there were any other questions. It was very well organized and very detailed. So you answered all of our questions.
Cool.
And Linda is saying she doesn't feel as intimidated by Intarsia now after you've explained it. And I have to say,
Perfect.
yeah, I think it's just that like learning to manage all of the different ends, isn't it? But
Yeah. Yeah,
just
but it's very simple to adapt your experience to like your Intarsia skills by just choosing a very simple motive because the simpler you get, the less balls you've got hanging, and then you can like get more complex by time. So it's really,
yeah,
really not hard to do. It's just about being patient. And I mean, knitting is about being patient at all.
yes.
So it's,
Definitely. And when the results are like that unique and special looking, it is worth kind of taking the extra bit of time over. We've also got Francoise is saying that she finds using straight knitting needles for intarsia easier than using circulars for that same thing of like, it's just a bit easier to manage all the bobbins.
yeah, yeah, and I like to do it with scarves as well, because then you don't have the cable where the yarn gets tangled into. Yeah, so try
Yeah.
to use it when you can. And
Yeah.
it's not too large.
And then Sophie is asking, you mentioned how you hide those small floats during the presentation, but I don't know if you actually showed us how you do that. So is that something you explain in the book or?
Yeah, I explain it in the book. It depends a bit on the technique, but it's a mix of how do you say it? Catching the float in color work is kind of similar, and a mix of weaving it to the right position. But it depends on which what you're knitting. Like brioche intarsia is very different to the garter stitch intarsia, but I mention it either in each pattern or in the book. It's mentioned as well, and also in the
Yeah.
chemic, and in the annual we've got a chapter as well showing
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So issue 3 of our annual has got that lovely chemic shawl by you. And we do have a whole kind of tutorial section for how to then do that extra little bit of garter stitch technique with the
Yeah.
intarsia so that it's all seamless. So yeah, but that's amazing that you figured it out for brioche as well, because
Yeah.
like the difference between those two samples is so
Yeah.
stark.
Yeah, it needed a while. And then I needed to like think of how can I try to write it down as easy as possible so that people actually want to follow it and don't get intimidated
Yeah,
by that one. So it's a lot, but
definitely.
at the end it's really cool. So it is, yeah, it makes sense to do the extra effort.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And then we've got a completely off-topic
Yeah,
question from Marja, which is, what is that interesting fork behind you?
a
Is it
fork.
a bit of knitting machine kit? It's this silver, is it a fork?
That one above.
There's a big silver thing. Yeah.
Ah, or
Is
another
that
one.
either that or the maybe the long silver thing with the prongs hanging down? I think
Ah,
that is maybe
yeah,
what
that one,
that
there are
looks like a
different
fork.
ones.
Oh, it's not even a fork.
No, no, there are different, like, now everything is falling down. Different things. So, yeah, it's machine knitting tools. And this one, if I
Ah,
can get it as well, just a second. This one is it's the yarn feeder, where you feed your yarn in. It's holding up at the machine. This one is just an extension for my bed. So if I use all needles on my bed, I can slide the carriage onto this extension. And this one is just a transfer tool to transfer stitches on the needles.
see, we're all hand knitters. We don't know anything about that. I'm sure there's a couple people watching who are, but I've
Yeah,
never, I mean,
maybe.
it does look like it speeds things up. One day, I do actually own a knitting machine. I just am like a
Aha.
bit scared of it. It lives in the attic, so
Yeah, it's fun, but it does like very different things. So lots of things you can do in hand knitting, I can't do easily on the machine, on these domestic knitting machines. But then there are other things I can do on the machine that I don't figure out how to do it, like with hand knitting yet. Like this one, it's a thing that I made on the machine that I maybe you can do it with crochet or something. I didn't figure out how to do it by hand, so it's different worlds.
Yeah, amazing.
But
Well,
Intarsia,
equally inspirational in both your work
yeah,
is.
yeah, and if you like stockinette stitch Intarsia, that's a thing that's very speedy on the machine. Yeah,
Yeah,
therefore it's really speedy.
lovely. And then I think we've got time for one more question, which is Milena is saying, could you please show the color analyzing machine you had on Instagram? This means nothing to me, but hopefully it does to you.
Well, yeah, let me just quickly grab it. I think it's lying over there.
Thank you. Thank you, Anna. And then a lot of other people have also said, will this be available to watch afterwards? Because I think a few folks have missed the beginning. So it
Mm.
definitely will. We've recorded this chat and it'll go up on our YouTube channel in time. It'll just take us like a month or two to kind of edit it and get it up. So
Yeah, yeah, this is
perfect.
the thing I've been using. It's called Color Reader, and it basically has an opening here where I like place, which I place on top of color, and then I press the button, and then it sends a color code to my phone. So I think it's
Mhm.
originally used to how do you say that? To get a code for colors where you can paint your walls. So it's for interior actually.
Oh,
Yeah, but my
yeah.
partner got me this as a gift to because I like to create color palettes. And I on my last holiday I went around Porto and was like catching up on the tiles and on the walls of the houses. Yeah, so it's called Color Read,
Amazing.
what it looks like. It's fun to play
Amazing.
with.
And then it gives you, so it's sort of like a Pantone color or like an RGB color is what it
Yeah,
gives you.
it got hex code and
Oh,
RGB.
yeah.
And then it looks, I can just click show it on the phone if it, and it creates a color palette on my phone. These are all the colors that are collected in Porto. And if you click on one, there are the codes then. So it also sometimes suggests a German brand which sells colors for the walls, but then there's a hex in the RGB code. Yeah.
Amazing. You just need to now go to the world's biggest yarn shop and then you can find yarn to match all
Yes.
of them.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I know everyone watching has had an absolutely brilliant time as well. So
Thanks a lot for
definitely, it's
inviting.
been such a treat. Oh, not at all. It's been such a treat. And I think we're all gonna, head over to your Ravelry and download some patterns and then
Yeah.
get Intarsia knitting.
Yeah.
Thank
It's really
you.
fun.
Thank you so much. And thanks, Anna.
Have
Bye,
a lovely day.
everyone.
Bye.